welcome to livealittlehigher.com. This week we read Parashah Vayeitze. In Spanish we say váyase. It sounds like váyase, and váyase means like go away, and basically this is what happens. Jacob gets the blessing from his father Isaac, and Rivka knows that the brother is very upset, Esau, and he's gonna kill the brother. So she tells him to go away, to go from the land of Israel to the land of Haran, where her brother lives, Laban, and to go and look for a wife in this place. She says this to Isaac, that she's sending him to find a wife because she wants someone from the family. She doesn't want him to end up married like Esau with all these idol worship girls. And this is what happens. So from the teachings of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, we learn that we all live in different environments. And throughout our lives, we change environments. We're never stuck in one place. Like, it's very strange that one person lives in the same house, in the same neighborhood, since he was born till the day he dies. It can happen, but normally people move to another city, to another neighborhood, to a different home, to a different building. And we see that there's these environments that affect our lives, and some in smaller scale, and some environments affect our lives in a grander scale. So on the other hand, for example, there's bigger environments like our communities, our country, our world at large. Like, for example, right now the environment of the world has changed drastically since the pandemic. We're all adjusting to new realities, and this is global. This is not only a person in a certain neighborhood. This is everybody's being affected in a one way or another. So Parashah Vayeitze focuses on the transition of one environment to another environment, and the Rebbe teaches that changes this brings about in a person's conduct. So a lot of our changes in our lives change our conduct. There's three things that are major in a person's life that really flip their lives around. And one is to move from one place to another, from one country or one city to another city. Another one is a death of a loved one, and another one is a divorce. These three things are really major changes in our environment. And here we see that Jacob changed drastically because he was coming from the holiness of the land of Israel, from a very spiritual place, and he was descending. He was not going higher like some people move, but they're moving to a better place. He was descending. He was going to an alien environment which was lower in spiritual endeavors, which was the land of Haran. And the Hebrew word for Haran is associated with anger. And thus our sages interpret this name as referring to arousal of God's anger. So let's see what this means. So there are three dimensions to Jacob's stay in Haran. Number one, he was confronted by a personal challenge in the company of his future father-in-law, who was a trickster. And in this way, he had to struggle against the way things were done in these environments. So, for example, he fell in love with Rahel, his daughter. This Laban guy had this beautiful daughter, Rahel, and it was love at first sight. He saw her and he melted, and he had to work 7 years to be able to marry her. And what happened when he was in the chuppah marrying her, lo and behold, it was not Rahel, it was Leah. The next day he woke up and it was not Rahel, it was Leah. And so he went and he confronted him. He says, I'm sorry, in this place, we marry our first daughters first. And then you can marry Rahel. But he had to work 7 more years to marry Rahel. So he had to adjust to this trickstery, to this environment. Secondly, he built his family during these years. During his stay in Haran, he ended up marrying the Rahel and Leah and Rahel, and then he ended up marrying the two handmaids, Bilhah and Silpah, which were also sisters of them, sisters of another mother, but nevertheless sisters, and he married them, and in that pursuit he built the Jewish people. Through these 4 women, the 12 tribes of Israel emerged, and we all come from the descendants of Yaakov. So we see that despite the influences that prevailed in the community at large, Yaakov infused his family with the spiritual heritage received from Abraham. And this is beautiful, because sometimes we change environments, we go to a different place, and the spiritual level of the place is lower. So you go with what's going on in the place. You lose what you were. But Yaakov, he never lost his kedusha. He never lost his holiness. On the contrary, he elevated the place. He made the place even holier. So to keep the way of God and to implement righteousness and judgment. And this is what Yaakov struggled through his years living next to Laban, was to maintain himself true and an Eved Hashem, a servant of God. He never budged. And in doing so, he established the Jewish modus vivendi for all time. So yeah, a Jew can live in Sri Lanka, there's no kosher food, and you know what? If he's true to himself, he'll eat vegetables, he'll eat fish, he'll find a way, he'll raise his own cows, he'll learn how to do shahita, he'll do whatever it needs to be done, but he will never go lower from where he is. So the third thing that Yaakov did in this new environment is that he elevated the environment of Haran. So by him staying true to himself, by being real, by being emet, because this is what Yaakov represented, was truth, he not only lifted himself up, but he lifted everybody around him up, and he lifted up godly sparks that were enclosed in the land's material substance. And this was reflected by his acquisition of Laban's sheep and the great wealth which he accumulated. So he became very, very rich. And what he did is that all the material blessings that Hashem gave him through the blessing of his father, he not only enjoyed them, but he made them holy. He used them for the service of Hashem. So each of these endeavors requires unique spiritual powers, and by overcoming the personal challenges posed by his surroundings, we learn from Yaakov that he had the spark, he had the strength to be able to show his infinite power, the infinite power of his godly soul. So what it is that this is a world of materialism. This world that Hashem created, because it's a creation of God. This is a world of Asiya, which is the world of action. It's a world in which Hashem has diminished himself. He contracted himself in such a way that a person can even come to doubt if God exists. A person can say, I don't believe in God. This is the reality of this world, because he cannot experience God. But the way that we experience God in this world is through the material world. When we take the ink and the paper and we write books about Hashem, or when you take a fruit like the trog and you use it in Sukkot and you make blessings on it, or when you take a little parchment and you write down a mezuzah and you're kissing it every time you come out of your house. All the material world is done. Hashem created it so we can elevate it and so we can use it for him. So we see that when Yaakov used this power, this spiritual power that he had, what he did was that he was revealing God in the world. And even in a hostile environment cannot prevent this expression. You know, the darker the place and the more real a Jew is, the more true to himself he is, the more expression of God there is going to be in that place. I once heard something beautiful that Rebbe Zingarelik from Milano said many, many years ago. And she said, like in the night, you see the stars, right? You see the stars. And the darker the place that you're in, like for example, you're in an island where there's no lights around, or you're in the jungle, or you're in the middle of the ocean and there's no city lights around you, the brighter they're gonna shine. And when you go to a city like New York, where it's all light, at night, it's hard to see the stars. You're gonna see them, but they're not so bright. it doesn't mean they don't exist. They're the same stars. And during the day, when the sun is out, even less you're not going to see a star. But it doesn't mean they're not bright and shining. So she said that that's the power of a Jew. The darker it is, the brighter the Jew shines. And so this is an exact explanation of Jacob's descent to Haran. It was such a dark environment, so raw and so materialistic, and there was no godliness there, that he shined his light through. And Jacob's acquisition of wealth and the refinement of the environment, it symbolizes and it represents a far greater extension. The material possessions acquired by Jacob were not by nature holy. The sheep he acquired, everything he acquired, by nature is not holy, because Hashem creates the material world, comes from a place called Klipa Noga. And Klipa Noga, as the word says, Klipa is a husk. And so what it means is that all materialism of the world that is permissible for a Jew, because there's some that is not permissible, this is another area, but everything that's permissible for a Jew is like an onion. It has layers, or a walnut, that it has this very hard cover. So the material world is covered. It has this husk. It has this layer that covers the spiritual aspect of it. So when you use the material world for elevating this world, to use it for Hashem, for what Hashem needs you to do with it, then you're removing the husk, and the godly sparks of this material object are going to be elevated. And this is the job of a Jew. I say that we're like transformers. We're transformers. We take one thing that is nothing, and then we make it something great. And that's what this material world is. And that's what happened to Yaakov. He came to this place. He got rich with all these riches, which were not holy. They were not intended for holiness. Nevertheless, he always used all his wealth to service Hashem. Everything was done for God. And so Jacob was thus working to fulfill the purpose of creation, showing how even the lowest dimensions of existence can be transformed into a dwelling house for Hashem. And so since Jacob and his family shared an inherent connection to holiness, the fact that they were able to maintain this connection despite the challenges of this foreign environment that was so like dark, it was a locked environment, although of worthy attainment, cannot be considered and accomplished on their own. The refinement Jacob brought about in Haran, by contrast, was his own achievement, one which changed the nature of the environment. So yeah, when a Jew comes to a place, I remember in Colombia when Rabbi Yoshua Rosenfeld arrived in Bogota, there was nothing for him. There was no Halav Israel milk. He drinks this special milk that has to be milked by a Jew. It has to be checked by a Jew. The meat was not for him. He could not eat this meat. There was nothing for them. Like, it was terrible. But he came to this place, this raw place, and he made a haven out of it. Now you can find cheese, and you can find milk, and you can find yogurt, and you can find bread, and you can find anything you want. And so this is the job of a Jew, is to come to a place and not ask, what does this place have to give me? That's not the question. What am I going to get from the place? The question is, what is this place lacking that I can give this place? And if everybody would think this way, if everybody, when they get to a place, to a foreign place, a foreign environment, and instead of thinking about themselves and thinking about what they're expecting of the place, they should be thinking, okay, what do I have in me that can make this place a better place? And that's our job. And so we see that that these efforts distinguish the divine service of Jacob from his forefathers. Abraham and Isaac represented the attributes of Hesed and kindness. Abraham was all kindness, all love, and Isaac was restraint, was Gebura. And so we see that these two aspects, love and awe of Hashem, are very important in our service. We need to have love to be able to fulfill the mitzvot, and we need to have fear to abstain from what we shouldn't be doing. And these are monumental. But in a certain way, when you give them so freely, like Abraham, he would be kind to everybody no matter what, or you're so restrained no matter what, then sometimes it can get obscured. But Yaakov was actually the perfect mixture of Hesed and Gevura, which is Tiferet, which is love, harmony, balance, truth. And this is what Yaakov represented, and that's why he was able to do this in this place. And we see that that Yaakov identified with this quality of truth. For truth has a dimension that transcends mortal limits, being above all possibility of change or interruption. So with truth, one can reach out and change environments, for nothing can oppose truth. We see with Abraham, for example, that his kindness was legendary, but it never changed the environment. People were touched by him, they were inspired by him, people learned about the one God, but eventually he didn't change people. And Isaac, he was more introvert, more inside, and he was more into digging deep into your wells. And so if a person has no will to change, he has no desire to change, he's not going to do the job. So the same thing, he had not such a big effect on his environment. But Yaakov, because he had this special mixture, he was able to transform his environment. And he produced the 12 tribes of Israel, 12 children who were perfect tzaddikim that brought the whole Jewish people into existence. So Yaakov's journey to Haran serves as an analogy for the descent of our soul into our bodies. Every time that we read in the Torah that they're going from a higher place to a lower place, for example, in the case of Yaakov, that he's going from the land of Israel to Haran, is an allusion, it's an allegory of the soul that is coming down to this world, is in a descent from the holy environment right next to Hashem, where he used to dwell, and he was basking in the rays of glory, and he's descending into this very dark place called this world, planet Earth, the world of Asiya in Kabbalistic terms, and he's descending into this darkness, but there's a purpose, there's a mission. And so every soul comes here, and the whole purpose of a soul coming down and being part of a body and a human experience really is to come and change the environment. That's why they say the Jewish people they have to come to do tikkun olam. We come to repair whatever is not right. We don't come here to ruin the place. We come to make it better. So as a person matures, he establishes a family, creating an environment in which he values and expresses, his values are expressed, and similarly, through contact with the world at large, he refines and elevates the godly life invested in creation. And this pattern is also reflected in the exiles of the Jewish people when they came out of the land of Israel, of Jerusalem, when the temples were destroyed and were scattered all around the world, waiting for Mashiach to come. And at the end of the day, that's the whole purpose of exile. There's a purpose in exile. It's very dark, it's very sad, it's very troublesome, but at the end of the day, it has a purpose. And the purpose is that the Jew should shine his light wherever he is. The darker the place, the more light you have to shine, the more transformation you can effect, and that's our job until Mashiach comes. And as I heard one rabbi say once, Rabbi Schwartz, he said, the day Mashiach comes, we're all going to be sad. We're going to be happy he's here, but at the end of the day, the opportunities that we have in this world to bring godliness, to make change, to correct, to do good, are going to be gone, because once Mashiach comes, we're not going to have sick people, we're not going to have poor people. We're not gonna have all this darkness. The darkness is gonna be lifted up. So it's gonna be a different life experience, but you're not gonna have opportunities to transform and to bring light and to reveal godliness, because godliness will be revealed everywhere. It's gonna be done. So I wish you a blessed week, and remember, live a little higher. Thank you.